Okay, so we're back. So hopefully you got a minute to think about this. If t is 0 for 1950, then we can assume that, for 1951 it would be 1, and for 1952 it would be 2. For 2000 it's going to be 50. And what this is getting you to think about is just that instead of the actual year, we're using this variable that's talking about how many years since 1950. Okay, that's what t is going to equal. So if t were 10, that would mean we'd be at 1960. The next question takes us a step further. It says, okay, again, time is 0 at 1950. We want to figure out how much milk was consumed in 1985. Okay. So let's look at what we know about milk. Milk consumption is going down 0.276 gallons per year. So in 1950, it was 36.4 gallons. So what I want you to do first, if you kind of see how to do this, you can go right ahead and do it on your own. If you're not quite so sure, let's work through it a little bit. So in 1950, it was 36.4 gallons. Our slope tells us that it goes down a certain amount every year. So what would my consumption have been in 1951? Well, it wouldn't have been 36.4 gallons, and it didn't go up. We know it went down. How much did it go down? Well, it went down this many gallons per year. So I could take 36.4 and I could subtract 0.276. Not subtract a negative, okay? I'm just subtracting this amount. And we should get 36.124 gallons. So on average, people in 1951 drank a little bit less milk than in 1950. How would I find 1952's amount? Well, I would take what they had in 1951 and I would subtract 0.276 and I would get 35.848 gallons. Right? So every year it goes down a little bit. Now, the problem with just figuring it out one at a time like this, if you remember back to when we talked about the latte yesterday, I said we kind of didn't want to do it like this because I can't figure out 1957 until I know what 1956 is, and I can't figure out 56 until 55. I don't really want to do this all the way until 1985. So let's think about that t value for a minute. T is 0 here at 1950. T is 1 in 1951. T is 2 in 1952. So think about what T is going to be in 1985. How many years have come and gone from 1950 until 1985? One way to do that is just to subtract. And we would find out that here T is 35. That means there have been 35 years, according to our model, that soft drink consumption has gone down 0.276 gallons per year. Okay? Here it went down once. Here it went down twice. It's going to go down 35 times. So think about how much we've lost over those 35 years. Well, every year we are losing 0.276 gallons, and there have been 35 of those years. So overall, between 1950 and 1985, the milk consumption has gone down 9.66 gallons, right? If you think about dimensional analysis, that's really what we're doing here. we're saying this is gallons per year times 35 years. We're left with gallons. Okay, so it's gone down 9.66 gallons. That's not how much people were drinking, though, in 1985. And it wouldn't make sense to have a negative anyway, right? But that's how much it went down over time. So what did it start at? It started at 36.4. So if it started at 36.4 and we went down 9.66 gallons, what are we left with? Well, we can take 36.4 and subtract the 9.66, and we get that in 1985, so we had 36.4 minus the 9.66, we have 26.74 gallons. That's on average how much people were drinking in 1985, drinking milk. So you can kind of imagine now that if I had a big chart and I did have all of these, right? I'd have 1950, 1951, 1952, going on, 1985, right? Kept going. And I did fill these all out. You can see that every year there are fewer gallons consumed. Right here it's, what did we say, 26.74. If we tried 1990, it would be even less, right? 2000, we'd be down to 22.6. So you can see that trend and that linear requirement, which is that every time this goes up by a year, this goes down by 0.276. Okay, so let's just think for a minute about what we ended up doing to find this. Okay, we started out with our original amount, and then we had to change it based on whatever the change was over time. So we have to include the change over time, right? Now, we subtracted because our change was negative. It went down a certain amount. But this, if it were the soft drink, this would be positive, so it would be going up. And how did I figure out how much it had changed over time? Well, I figured out how much the change was per year times the number of years that had gone by. I want to, in number 4, it's asking us to write models or equations for the change in milk consumption and the change in soft drink consumption. I want a model or an equation that I can use for any year. I don't want to have to go through every single year. And so in 1985, we kind of did that. We did sort of a model in our head, but now we're going to rewrite it in a more formal way. So again, if you want to try this on your own, I'd encourage you to stop the video for a minute and try writing these, and then come back and check your answer. So let's look at the milk consumption first. Again, we sort of have a template of what we did. So they call it in there M. So M equals our original amount, 36.4 gallons, minus, in this case, because our change is negative, 0.276 times however many years have gone by. So what do we want to put here? We don't want to put the year. We don't want to put 1985 or 2000 or anything like that. First of all, that would tie us down to one time. Plus, this is how many years have changed. In 1965, I haven't changed milk consumption for 1,965 years, according to my data, right? So this is where it comes into play that T is 0 at 1950. So T would tell us how many years of change we had, which is what we did here, right? Here we had 35. That was my T. So my milk model or equation is going to have us starting out with the original. My slope is negative, so it goes down that much every year. Following this pattern, go ahead and try writing your soda model. Original, and then how it changes per year. That's my slope or my rate of change. So go ahead and write that one. Okay, so my starting value for soda is 10.8. My slope or my rate of change for soda is that it goes up 0.77 gallons per year. Well, again, the number of years I'm using is going to be T. Okay, so now I have two models. This model tells me how my milk consumption has changed during these years that we're looking at data for. And this model tells how the soft drink consumption has changed during those years. Okay, so if you look on the next page now, we're going to use these equations to fill in a chart and then graph. So let's just look at the chart for a minute. And I'm going to have you do some of this on your own, partly because it's kind of hard to show up here and partly because you've done this before. We'll know how to do it. So the calendar year goes from 1950 by tens up to 2000. Okay. Then the next column here is our T. So our T, remember, at 1950, T is 0. So in 1960, T is 10. It's how many years since 1950? So 1970, T would be 20, right? And so on. And then we have the milk amount and the soft drink amount in gallons. Okay, so I'm going to have you do some of these by yourself to fill it in, but let's do one or two together. So let's do the first row together. Well, we'll do the first two rows. Okay, so for the first row here, 1950, I want to figure out the milk consumption. Well, we kind of already know that the milk consumption in 1950 was 36.4 gallons. And we know that the soft drink consumption was 10.8 gallons. But we could also use our formula for that, our model. So for milk, we could say 36.4 minus 0.276 times T. In this case, T is 0. Anything times 0 is 0, so we end up with just 36.4. So our model works even for that spot of 0. And the same thing would happen here, right? This would cancel out with 0. We'd end up with just 10.8. Okay, let's do the next one. So when our T is 10, we put 10 in here. Remember, order of operations says we're going to multiply first and then we'll do our subtraction. So we get 36.4 minus 2.76. Okay, when we take 0.276 and multiply it by 10, we're going to get negative 2.76, and then we're going to subtract, and we get 33.64. Again, that's gallons. Okay, this is just like we were doing over on the other side a minute ago. Instead of figuring out 1951, 1952, we skipped ahead to 10 years. It's going down, which it should be. How about my soft drink? My soft drink should go up, right? So my soft drink, again, I use my model. I plug in 10 for T. Multiply first. And then add those two. So 10.8 plus 7.7 is going to give me 18.5. It's going up, which makes sense. And if you look at the slope, it's going up faster than the milk is going down. Okay, so remember we said for the soda, people are drinking almost another whole gallon each year. For the milk, it's going down. Okay, I'll be back in just a second with a new video.